I'm part of the Google Play team that works with a lot of the developers, such as the ones in the audience. And first of all, thanks so much, Warren, for having me here. It's been really interesting. My first Asilomar AppCamp. It definitely is very different, which is why, as I was building this presentation, I actually had a presentation which I put together on Saturday, and I realized, for this audience, we need a little bit more sort of inspiration. So after I think yesterday's, panel, so bear with me because some of this stuff is new, some stuff is stuff we announced at our developer conference last week, which, I'm looking at also for the first time. I'm like, oh, interesting. So, by the way, how many people are app developers? Okay, good number. How many are kind of in the educators or researchers, etc.? Okay, cool. So, part of the mission, as we think about what we're all trying to do here, is really educate kind of that next generation. But a lot of research shows that in, kids in kindergarten today are the jobs they're going to get. More than half of them, we don't know what those jobs are going to be yet. In fact, which year will kids who are going to kindergarten now graduate? Does anyone know that off the top of their head? It's 2033, I think, for the ones who went in last year, 2034. So we don't know what jobs are going to be. And I think one of the old US Secretary of Education said, trying to train kids for jobs that we don't know, using technologies that haven't been invented, and to solve problems that we don't even know today are problems. How do you do all that? That's the fun part, right? So the good news is that even as technology changes, something remains constant, and that is kids' curiosity. So it's good to kind of see that and see how, stuff that we used in childhood, our kids can now use, and have a very similar experience. So as we're thinking about, as parents, educators of schools, teachers, employers, thinking about what are these skills and how do we get students to learn them, and then also how does technology fit in. At Google, we commissioned the intelligence unit of the Economist group to do a survey and figure out what are the top skills that kids are going to need that we can train them on to prepare them for this unknown, exciting future. I'd love to hear your guesses. Any idea what the top 2 or 3 skills would be? Yes?
Coding.
Interesting. Anything else?
Teamwork.
Yeah, teamwork.
Ecology.
Ecology. Okay. So all are actually all very, very apropos. What was interesting was, I thought it would be a lot of like engineering, finance, accounting, things that transcend, things you'd always need. Actually, in a survey of business leaders today, who were polled and said what should we teach kids to prepare them for tomorrow, things like teamwork and problem solving and critical thinking and communications came up top more than the more sort of specific functional skills. And I think part of it is because no matter what the jobs are going to be, you're going to need all these.
I can't read that. Can you just run?
Sure. Problem solving is at the top. Teamworking, communications, critical thinking, creativity, a lot of C's in there, literacy, digital literacy, leadership, foreign language, emotional intelligence, and then NA, maybe someone didn't know. So at Google also we see that these are really important. So if you think about education, it's the 3 R's, yes, the reading, writing, arithmetic, but now there's also 21st century learning around the 4 C's. With collaboration at Google, we I don't know how many people have heard of the project where you can read someone's diabetic level through there's a contact lens through which you can read through their eye whether they're diabetic. And in that you have, so when you think about collaboration, we already think about multiple languages, teams in different countries and all, but now we're talking multidiscipline. So you've got like the biologists and the urologists talking to engineers to build that. Similarly with Project Loon, which is the project where you've got all these hot air balloons floating over, bringing internet to the wilds of Mongolia, etc. You have the engineers, mechanical engineers and computer scientists, but you also have meteorologists and like climate change people. So all of them need to figure out how to talk a common language and how to collaborate. And in terms of creativity, if the problems of tomorrow are something we don't even know today, you know, how do you approach them? How do you even think of something outside the box? And just like your industrial machines replacing blue-collar workers, we're now seeing computers replacing white-collar workers. But as we instill creativity, right, they're going to be able to, whatever that problem is, they're going to be able to figure out what that is and then develop a solution for that. So things like self-driving cars came out of that, or even in Google Photos, where you don't have to tag a photo for someone to know, use artificial intelligence to understand that it's about a dog or it's about, something. And critical thinking is, and I find this is really important, because I don't know, when I was little and I'd have to go to the library and pull out encyclopedias to do research, and there was tons of information there. And then information got onto a computer, then to a phone, then to your wrist, then in your eye, and there's a lot more of it. So given all this information, it's still going to be important to know what is it that we need to use, right? And that's where critical thinking will come in. So no matter what the problems of today or tomorrow are, you need to be able to know how to be able to solve them. And this is something that Larry Page, he of the Montessori fame, said, the more we get people falling in love with science and math, right, and the more important, then you get them working on these solutions and really try and make people's lives better. And that's a philosophy kind of at Google we've always tried to follow, even from the get-go. Education has been one of the most important verticals at Google. In fact, I think it's the only vertical because we aren't even organized by it. And Google Play, which is the area that I work on, which is the store on Android devices. So we're also thinking a lot about how do we, how do we create a platform that takes your content to get it in front of kids to inspire them. Last year we launched Google Play for Families, which is a family section on the store. How many people have their content in the family section? How many people even heard of the family section? Okay, so I'm glad I'm talking about that. But basically it's a place where there's content for kids and families. And very specifically, I'm saying family because, as I've seen in my kids, they play a lot of things that are made just for kids, but they also play things that are enjoyed by kids and adults. And so we wanted to create something that was very appropriate for kids, no matter sort of how old or what their interests were. So it includes what we call kids only as well as mixed age content. And so we launched this about exactly a year ago, last May, and then it worked kind of on creating more, helping make that a better platform. So for example, making it more prominent on home screen so that, families you can see in there shows up and you can get to that content earlier. Also, kids have told us they really like characters, so we have the popular characters that kids use. We added about 34 more characters just since launch last year, where you have all the content of a particular character in a place. And so, for example, Angry Birds, very popular with kids, you can see all the apps and movies and games, music, TV shows, etc. associated with that one place. But we're also thinking about families and kids as a unit. Like, what are the things that they need? How do you help them find what they want, buy what they want? Monetization is very important. We were talking about that in yesterday's panel. So last December, we launched a family subscription for music, where up to 6 people in a family can purchase a music family plan, and for $15, which to $14.99, which otherwise would cost about $60. And then with this, what the more important thing here is creating that concept of family. So having up to 6 people united under one form of payment, where if I'm a child in the family, I have my own account. I'm not messing up my parents' account, but my parent can then use that family form of payment to be able to purchase stuff for me. One of the things we've seen is not having a form of payment is a big deterrent to not purchasing. So when you create a family account and you put in a form of payment, that removes a lot of the friction from people, buying something. And then also making purchasing and approvals easier. So if my kid is playing something and wants to buy something in the app, so there's an in-app purchase, you know, and they don't have credit, or they don't have a credit card, they've run out of Play credits, but they can come to me and I can approve the purchase through the family payment method. And so, you know, that way they're not abandoning the thing, or they're not adding my credit card, which, you know, compromises security. But we still think about what do families really do, and how do you enable that to happen. And then our program for, you know, kids and family developers, designed for families, helps take care of some of the issues of, you know, when you're creating something for a family. You know, we have in the family section, if you're part of Design for Families, you get obviously featured in the family section as well as the regular Play Store. We have our own top charts, etc. But also, when you search for something that we understand is a family-related query, and Google knows search, if you know anything. But if you can determine, yes, this is, you know, games for 3-year-olds, or education apps for kids, then if you're in Design for Families, you're actually boosted in the search results compared to other results. So I'm switching gears a little bit to now how, you know, what are some of the features we build on the platform, and some of these are literally from last week, to help developers build this family-friendly business, right? And I break it up into kind of 3 areas. So there's developing your app, growing users, and then earning money on the platform. So in our research, we've seen that 60% of our spend on the family apps, the apps, you know, kids apps in the family section, are on tablets, which is not surprising since tablet is generally your shared device, whereas a phone is a very personal device. So yes, while you have parents giving their phones at a restaurant to kids, tablets are still front and center for this audience. And so we have a tablet optimization checklist that we encourage developers in the kids space to make sure that they you know, look at before they publish an app on Play. One of my favorite questions. So how many people here are using alpha and beta testing? Okay. Cool, okay. It's always much lower than I think. This is the most popular feature on the developer console. And what it does is it allows you to get feedback on your app before you launch it, and before you put it out there, and suddenly, you know, there was some bug, and suddenly, you know, all the reviews are 1 star, all the ratings are 1 star, and you can't climb out of that hole. A lot of developers came to us saying, hey, you know, before we, you know, you can run a beta program, but you get the beta users yourself. But developers came to us and said, well, we don't have that many users, we want to open it up to more. So we launched also the open beta program. So you can do your own closed beta with a list of emails, but you can also do an open beta where anyone can sign up for the beta program. And you can limit it by a certain number, but you don't have the burden of then trying to round up a group that you want to test this with, if you want to, you know, spread it broadly. And in fact, what we just launched last week was the ability now in just your store listing for someone to be able to, as they look at your listing in the store, sign up for a beta if you're offering it then. And they can also give you private feedback as opposed to leaving it on the page. And none of this affects your store rating because you're not in, you haven't published it. We're also making available like early access, which, you know, we create a collection called early access of really promising apps and games that haven't launched yet, but we feature them so people can take a look at them and try them out and, you know, build that buzz for them. We also launched something called a pre-launch approach. So how many people think there's too many Android devices out there, too many types of Android devices? There can never be too many devices, yes. We hear that a lot. And as developers say, especially family developers, that's a lot of devices. Am I expected to purchase all of them to test? No, you're not. So what we launched was Firebase Test Lab, where basically you can test virtually test on multiple devices that we have. And we just launched a pre-launch report, which allows you to do this even before you launch, because before you could test this after you launch. But before you launch, you can test it. You can see on where is it crashing, which device is it crashing, either on start or later in the app. You can see how it looks like on different resolutions and Android versions. So if there's text overflow, etc., you fix it. And you can also get a report on security, like are there any vulnerabilities, and all this before you launch. So switching gears a little bit about growing a user base. Anyone here done store listing experiments? Okay, cool. Yeah, this is also very popular. So what this is, and we actually recently announced that you can now do 5 at a time. I don't know if people knew that. But you can basically test any part of your store listing, the icon, the words, the colors, etc., and see does anything make a difference. And in the kid space, this really matters because in surveys we've done of kids, they're all attracted to the icon. Kids like colors. And so if you want to test different icons and say, hey, where am I getting more installs or conversions from? Baby First, which is one of our partners, tested 2 different icons and found the one that they had not chosen got 10% more installs. So you can guess what they did. In fact, this is experiments that Rovio has run, and Rovio has now said we are always going to test icons before we launch to know even a little bit of difference. Each small percentage difference in large numbers drives a lot of users for them. Anyone here use promo codes? I'm looking at you since you've raised your hand and everything. Okay. You have? Oh, good. Okay. Do you like that?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. But when did that happen?
Promo codes? That was a couple of months ago.
Oh, it's new.
Yeah.
I didn't know you had it.
Oh, I knew you meant last week. Yes, so this is why I go around and talk about all the different things we're doing. But what promo codes is basically in the developer console, you have the ability to give up to 500 codes out for either your app or part of your app to users so they can basically get it for free and check it out. And this would be great to put in a marketing campaign, for example, right? I don't know where you've used it, but you can think about there's a group of influencers you want to reach, or early parent evangelists, or you want to give it out. You don't need to contact Google, go through a process of trying to get promo codes, just up to 500, do on your own. Especially when something's newly come out, or you want someone to write about it, this would be really good.
Sorry.
Say again?
Are you planning to extend it to subscriptions as well?
Yes, so currently it's for, a good question. So currently, the question is whether we're extending subscriptions. Currently it works for premium and in-app purchase, and we're working on that. So hopefully we can make that happen. That's a little bit harder because you can imagine, if the subscription is kind of a, repeatable event, and typically a lot of developers offer a free, time period. So if you want to give the whole subscription away for free forever, developers have said they want to put a time limit on it. So that's why it's more complicated than freemium or premium. So this is also something we just launched last week at I/O. So people, when they're searching for something, they look for, we want to understand the context of what they're searching for, and then give them stuff that they want. So if they're searching for buying a home, or they're planning a vacation, or the one I like learning for kids or something like that. So you want to understand the context and be able to recommend things that work. So for example, in this case, someone's searching for wallpaper, we're like, wow, they might be wanting to personalize their phone. So we can, so basically what comes up below is different things like ringtones, emoji, etc. that help them personalize their phones. So try and show people what we think they need at the time they need it, and they may not even know that something like this existed. And what we use the machine learning to sort of identify based on searches, views, what the context is and what we think the user could want. Again, back to search, knowing search comes in really handy. In fact, here's someone searching for Trulia. We're like, well, if they're buying a home, what else would they want? There's a mortgage, IKEA, furniture, or if they're looking for something in San Francisco, then maybe they want to explore it or meet new people. So really trying to put more context. Again, all this back to increasing discovery as much as possible, which is the top thing I've heard from you guys about discovery and monetization on developers all over the place, not just in the space. There's tons of apps out there, we've heard that, we've all talked about that today. So how do you get something relevant in front of people? So this is really important, right? Reviews and ratings. I know Dan talked about it yesterday, responding to reviews, or responding to customers, building that community, building that connection. So we've done a ton of stuff on this. The ability to be able to look at your ratings across country and by device, by Android version, so language, tons of different things. And also the ability to respond to reviews. Anyone here responded to any reviews yet? Okay, good. And in fact, one of the things we found is, and we just sort of released the stat now, that if you respond to a review, typically if someone changes their review, it goes up by about 0.7 stars, which is the difference a lot of times to get you from 1-star rating group to another. And the other thing we've seen, I don't have a slide on that today, but we've also seen that ratings correspond very highly to revenue. So you respond to a review, someone changes their review, rating goes up, and hopefully revenue goes up. That's why it's really important. And in fact, interestingly, when we looked at our 1-star reviews, half of them weren't about, here we've spent a lot of time talking about app design and what is great for kids and how do you think about that. 50% of the reviews are for, hey, it doesn't work, it's unstable, it's got bugs. That should be easy fixes. That's nothing to do with great app design or what would Maria Montessori say. Conversely, almost 2/3 of our 5-star reviews mention speed and design and stability and usability. So those are really easy things to look at and kind of should be on the checklist before you even think about, well, how are kids learning from this. We have a new thing, review highlights. Anyone heard about that? Okay, since it was last week, I guess. That's fine. So what we do is we look through the reviews, and when I say look, I mean, some machine does it. But we try and find common themes from your reviews. What are the people really talking about in the when they review your app? You could be thinking this is about something in particular, but you know what? The highlights show you this is really what they're responding to. And maybe that changes how you do things or changes how you market what you're doing because you didn't realize that they really cared about X while you were really pushing Y, right? So for example, you have language learning apps and you may think it's about language, but it really is about, the quickness or graphics or the excellent tools sort of that you have or the tests that you administer to know that they're doing well, and then you may want to play that up. We also introduced something called topics. So what topics does is, for a dynamic set of words based on your reviews, it actually looks at how the reviews, how does that impact your reviews and your rating. So if these are the key things that people so if this comes out of these are top things that I mentioned in reviews, how has that impacted rating? And when you see a lot of red, you know that that's something you want to work on. So, and this is dynamically generated based on reviews. So over time, this could change. The things that people talk about, how has that impacted your reviews, you fix, goes away, all green. Similarly, we also launched benchmarks. So this is, whereas topics was about a set of topics that was pertinent to your particular app or game based on based on what people said in their reviews, benchmarks is for a fixed set of topics that are common across all apps. And what it does is it tells you how you're doing compared to a set of your peers in that space. Right? So design, speed, stability, all those things that are common across all apps and games. Think about it for all of you guys in the room to know, hey, I didn't realize that I really need to, in this case, step up on stability. Everyone else who's got a similar app is much more stable than me. So now lastly, moving into kind of earning money and talking about business models. So subscription is something that's come up quite a bit today, and on Play also we've seen a big, sort of large growth in subscriptions. So you can see how the number of apps, and this is across all categories, but because of that, we're actually putting a lot of effort into the platform on, making our subscriptions product better. So you can have by weekly, monthly, quarterly, annual subscriptions, grace periods, there's reminders, etc., goodwill credits, a lot of things. And in fact, one of my best moments last week at I/O was someone came up to me and said how our subscription product was so much better, or part of the platform was so much better than the competing platform. So that was really good, and we're going to be continuing to put a lot of sort of effort into this. Now, yesterday we talked about freemium in the panel, and Valerie shared her experience with that. But freemium typically has done really well on Play, right, across the board. And even in the kids space, Story Toys, did for their Chuggington Chuck Patrol app, they actually put out a free freemium version, and they found that that had about 250 times the downloads and 3 times the revenue of their premium version. So, it's worth checking out and saying, is that something that you think is, might work for you? Of course, chunking up the app is very important in that, and you also want to let people know.
So, what was behind that 250x saw growth? It seems like that wouldn't come just from making it free.
Well, compared to the premium version, yeah, because people are installing.
Okay. You didn't feature it?
No, nothing was more. We tried to do an apples to apples comparison. Pardon the expression. Okay. And then also ads, which is a business model that works, on Play, and also what we see people doing in the kids space. And again, in our family section, we have no issues with it, but we do want you to understand that. But if there are ads, you need to declare it. That's something parents want to know, which is fine because at the end of the day, if you give them the data, that's up to every parent to parent how they want. And as of January, any app in the Play Store that has ads has to declare ads. And if you have a child-directed app, and for example, you're using AdMob, so you've got to think about worldwide there are privacy, child privacy laws. You can't do interest-based remarketing, so make sure that you respect child privacy. And an AdMob, there's a setting where you can say this is child-directed, and so they won't be doing interest-based advertising or remarketing to that on that app. Or you also need to make sure the content is age-appropriate, so you can say, I want kid-friendly content only, and check that box. And if you're designed for families, we sort of do that, we check that for you and make sure that that's done for you. So anyway, to wrap up, what's really exciting to me is, this is a chance to really create a future for a lot of people. And some of you know, I grew up in Pakistan, and I came to the US for college, and I really think about the fact that education has brought me to where I am. It's really, really important. And so if we give people education, we give them a future, inspire, and it's not just giving them education, it's inspiring them to learn, to want to use that, right? So you have a doctor who's somewhere with a smartphone and checking on patients miles away. You've got a farmer who's like, oh, let me use sort of this data analysis from machine learning and optimize my crop yield. I mean, there's so many different things one can do. So it's very exciting for me. Anyway, so that's it for the slide. Any questions? Do I have time for questions or no?
Yeah.
Do people have any questions?
Shazia, we heard in the industry that Google Chrome was going to accommodate Android apps, and that's really exciting.
Yes.
Can you tell us what you're saying about that?
So the question is around Chrome accommodating Android apps, something else we just announced at I/O. And Chromebooks, I mean, there's tons of Chromebooks. I think the stat, and this is a while ago, was 30,000 Chromebooks activated every day worldwide. So, and in schools. So Chromebooks are very, very prevalent in schools. And those students and educators and teachers and all want content. And so what we've just announced is, instead of developers having to build an Android app to be on Play and a Chrome app to be on Chromebooks, you're able to take your Android app and run it through something called Arc Android Runtime for Chrome, and through that be available on Chromebooks. So initially we just announced 3 that's going to be available on, things with touch screens, but over time, in the fall, it's going to be available on, I think, Chromebooks for the last 2 years or so. Yeah. So again, you don't have to, the whole point is developers should not have to build 2 different versions.
So
Yes.
That's just Chromebooks, not Chrome in the browser.
Yes, that's Chromebooks. Yes.
Do you anticipate another separate app store for your projects, or would that be included into the Play?
I don't even know if we've thought about that, but I think I don't know that we need a separate app store. If it's apps, right, then they should be in the Play Store, and that we could do like a collection here, VR-enabled apps, similar to what we did for Wear. So you've got a collection for Wear-enabled apps that work on the watch. So I wouldn't I doubt that we have a separate store. Anyone else? Yes.
Do you want to talk about Project Tango and education?
Not a whole lot to say specifically on education on that, specifically now. And not as in that, but it's not on, I think we need to do more thinking around how can we leverage it mainstream. There are developers like Legacy who are, working on, what I would call early adopters on the cutting edge, working on that. And I think it's a good point. We need to think through what can we do with that for kids, but haven't really put a lot of thinking on that. Let me go to her and then come to you. Yes?
Yeah, so from your scan, your view of the marketplace, do you feel there are any particular deficits of content, help points in the direction that we're not repeating too much?
So the question was on, are there deficits of content that developers should focus on? That's always a hard one to answer, right? Because the way we look at content, it's by age group, by subject, by type of, on the learning side versus the entertainment side. Should it be with licensed IP or not? So it's hard to slice and dice that and say, okay, there's too little of this, too much of this. But what I do find is for the developers that are actually doing well, among other things in terms of just what they're building, it's something they're passionate about. So even if there's a deficit in something, but that's not something you're excited about, I wouldn't necessarily say build there. Instead, I'd say build in something, even if there's a ton of stuff in there that you are passionate about, because chances are it will be better than it would otherwise. And then also, and here's the part of the monetization and something that I think about. You can't just put in the store and say, okay, I built it and they will come, and that's the end game, right? Someone writes a book, they don't say, okay, it's on Amazon or it's in the bookstore. They go do book tours and blogs and stuff. So I think if you create something you're really interested in, and then get out there and let people know, that's probably a better recipe for success.
Good video to watch is by Michelle Crippinelli, who spoke last year, talked about the open waters, and of course it's ocean house media, so the ocean was the metaphor. But he said, find a part of the ocean, find the open water there, and then own it, and be part of it. So like Carolyn, they've gone into the curated content, curated video, build trust and build community space, and they're going to own it, or they hope to. And so I think that's a good strategy. Follow your passions and be the best in that category. And if it's not working, keep sanding it, keep refining it, and keep improving it until you are the trusted brand in that space. Sort of like Tokaboka's done.
Yeah, and then on the early whatever side, so if VR, people are talking about that, is that something you want to be on? Up to you to decide. Or if you're saying, well, for kids 10 to 12, there's not that many coding apps, then maybe there's an opportunity. But I don't look at things that way. I look at more where's the passion.
Well, Shazia, thanks for coming. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
I'm really excited about Google Cardboard, but a little nervous about safety implications for kids.
Okay.
Have there been any studies or?
So yeah, Google Cardboard. I think we've talked about. We announced 1 million kids using that for expeditions in their schools, and which is a really good stat. And for those who don't know, Google Cardboard is literally talk about VR for all. It's a viewer. You put your phone in, and it's literally made of a piece of cardboard, lens, some magnets, etc. Last year we found a lot of school budgets have been cut, especially in North America, and where it really gets cut is field trips. So like, okay, if you can't take kids on the field trip, let the field come to the kids, because that's also an important part of learning. So what we did was we put cardboards, create a program where teachers could use cardboard in the classroom, and our content partners like Nat Geo, like Smithsonian, etc., created really great content, and the kids were sort of immersed in that content. In fact, something I took out of the slides and maybe I should have kept in is they're learning about the Great Barrier Reef, and they're literally in the water. So given the for cardboard, one of the key markets is the expeditions, which is for schools. That's something that we've definitely made sure that it works around multiple dimensions.
All right, I'd like to offer Shazia a big round of applause.